Hello, this is Tony Hiller from RealClimateScience.com. For climate journalists, the date of the dawn of time depends a lot on which topic they're discussing. When they're discussing forest fire data, journalists say that time began in 1983. When discussing sea ice, journalists say that time began in 1979. And when discussing temperature data, journalists typically say that the dawn of time was 1960. I made a video yesterday discussing how National Public Radio was hiding the hottest years in the United States, which all occurred prior to 1960. Now let's look at how the New York Times does exactly the same thing. New York Times, how much hotter is your hometown than when you were born? As the world warms because of human-induced climate change, most of us can expect to see more days when temperatures hit 90 degrees Fahrenheit. See how your hometown has changed so far and how much hotter it may get. Well, let's give it a try. I'm going to say that I was born in Danville, Illinois in the year 1930. What comes up is a message that says, our data set goes back to 1960 when you were 30. Back then, the Danville, Illinois area could expect about 25 days per year to reach at least 90 degrees. Today, the Danville, Illinois area can expect 24 days at or above 90 degrees per year on average. By the end of the century, models show that there could be 50 of these very hot days. The likely range is between 34 and 85 90-degree days per year in Danville, Illinois. The Danville, Illinois area is likely to feel this extra heat even if countries take action to lower their greenhouse gas emissions by the end of the century. Now let's take a look at the actual data for Danville, Illinois. Danville has had 3,297 days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit since the beginning of the 20th century. The trend has been sharply downwards, and temperatures in Danville prior to 1960 were much hotter than they have been in recent years. We could repeat the same exercise for most of the official thermometers in the United States and see essentially the same pattern. The frequency of 90-degree days in the United States was much higher prior to 1960. The past 60 years have been quite cool in the United States, particularly recent years. The New York Times reported in 1961 that there was unanimous agreement among scientists that the world was getting colder. This date in 1936, July 10, was the hottest day on record in New York City. Central Park got up to 106 degrees. The New York Times reported that Times Square was 115 degrees Fahrenheit on this date in 1936. Today's temperature in New York City is 23 degrees cooler than it was on this date in 1936. Let's look at some headlines from the New York Times in 1901. June 29, 1901. Heat brings death and much suffering. Life rendered almost unbearable in the tenement districts. June 30th, 1901, New York wilts in protracted heat. Temperature on the street from 98 to 106 in the shade. Many dead and prostrated. July 1st, 1901, the city a furnace virtually deserted. July 2nd, 1901, heat's holocaust in the 5 boroughs. 87 deaths and 178 prostrations. July 3rd, 1901, heat brings death to over 200 persons. Several hundred others collapse in stifling atmosphere. July 4th, 1901, 200 more dead before rain falls. Storms at last come to break the fatal heat. 94 degrees in early hours. The New York Times wants the readers to believe that they're burning up at 83 degrees Fahrenheit and that temperatures are getting hotter than they used to be. Like National Public Radio, the New York Times has an agenda to demonize fossil fuels. They want the readers to believe that the burning of fossil fuels is causing summers to get much hotter, even though the data shows the exact opposite. So like National Public Radio, the New York Times has hidden all the inconvenient data prior to 1960. The New York Times also doesn't want the readers reading old articles because they completely destroy the current New York Times climate agenda. Like National Public Radio, the New York Times is committing fraud and misinforming their readers. But all the New York Times readers I know take the word of the New York Times as being the gospel truth. Toto's been pulling back the curtain on these scamsters for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki and Upala on the web at RealClimateScience.com.